Hi everybody, welcome to episode 39 of the Teesside Business Podcast. Today we are joined by TRAC UK. So thanks very much for coming down and chatting with us. Obviously, it's always great for us to get organisations on that help people in the local community, which is a massive part of what we want the podcast to be about. So can you give everybody who's listening a brief overview of obviously yourselves and how TRAC UK came into being, like a mini history of it kind of thing?
Yeah, of course. We are passionate about what we do at TRAC. We're both in recovery from addictions ourselves, so we like I said, very passionate about what we do. We but we've been in we were both in addiction for quite a number of years, and during that time we kind of didn't know there was a way out, any services that could help us get out of what we were suffering at the time. And I know there's a lot of people out there who do suffer the same. We know that this area is there's a lot of drug problems, alcohol problems in Middlesbrough, well, across Teesside. And I was involved in addiction for various reasons. So, to cut a long story short, I kind of found my recovery through, at the time, a 12-step program, which is Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, and it took me quite a while. I was tapping in and out of meetings, and then eventually kind of got into recovery. It didn't happen overnight. It took some time. I was going to meetings. I even went to rehab, and then when I got into recovery, I started working for a drug service in Stockton called CGL. It's Change Go Live. It used to be CRI. And I was a volunteer, and I was setting up service user groups, and I was heavily involved in volunteering and peer mentoring. I then became a women's advocacy worker, part-time work, job share, going around the hostels, working in conjunction with A Way Out, which is a service in Stockton for, I think, young people and women suffering from addiction and all the surrounding issues. Sort of going to the hostels around Stockton and working on the streets, offering condoms and things like that, trying to engage women in drug services who kind of had that as part of why they were doing what they were doing, to kind of get money for drugs. Yeah. And then I went to now I became a trainer. I was training the peer mentors within CGL. And then went off and did a foundation degree in counselling, and then worked in Durham Prison as a 12-step therapist on a recovery wing for 2 years. Yep. During that time, I set up a women-only recovery group on Facebook, which has got over 4,000 members, because I realised, obviously, being a woman, being passionate about recovery, that I think women definitely needed somewhere, a safe space to dip their toe into recovery and find out what that's all about without actually entering mainstream services or entering any sort of recovery, just finding out, because there's a lot of barriers to women entering recovery. It could be domestic violence, it could be worrying about children being removed due to their addiction. But I think once they get onto this group and they can private message other women and they can speak and they get memes, there's positive memes on there and stuff, they can say like, I think maybe I might just go and get that help and get that support that I need, and fears are dispelled, and then they can carry on and get support. So that's a really brilliant group, and I'm really proud of that. And there's about 6 admins on there, or probably 9 admins on there, all in recovery. Great supportive group. Also, obviously being in recovery myself, I realised the need for independent advocacy, which is what we are at the core, independent advocacy. There is a lot of advocacy services out there, but we work on our own. We're away from mainstream services, statutory services. We are there purely for the client without any other kind of outside influence. Yeah. I'm passionate about that because when I was in recovery, I ended up... my son was... my mum ended up bringing up my son when he was 8 years old through drug addiction, domestic violence, everything that goes, everything that surrounds that. And when I was working with social services and the police, I kind of felt in a very vulnerable position. Yeah. And I felt, who's there for me? You know, who's actually there, unbiased person who is there for me to support me through this. And I feel like things may have worked out a little bit different, or maybe not, but at least then I would have had the support that I felt that I needed and I didn't get. So I left Durham Prison and set up TRAC, which is the Recovery Advocates and Consultants, which is based in the St Mary's Centre in Middlesbrough, first floor. We cover Teesside. We work with the most marginalised people, most vulnerable people in the society, the ones that maybe mainstream services find difficult to serve. And we offer like low level support, kind of like basic intervention, early intervention. Somebody comes to us or is referred to us, and we can say, right, okay, you know, we can pick you up, we can take you to the appointment, we can take you to a drug assessment appointment, we can take you to a medical through DWP, we can take you to welfare rights to sort out your benefits, we can take you to the doctors if there's anything pressing that you need to sort out, everything that can help them on their way, right at the very beginning, to that first step to sorting their lives out.
I can imagine that obviously I've got very little education in the space at all. But for those people who are like so marginalised or in that position, that even the thought of trying to make that first step of, well, how do I get the support and go through these things? Because obviously these, in my mind, the thing, it's very like you would speak to somebody in the council or one of these organisations, they're very institutionalised, like having to go through, and you instantly start thinking, God, I'm going to have to start filling loads of forms, I'm going to have to do this and I'm going to do that. And I hate the idea of that. Never mind somebody, like, I imagine that is I can imagine it's a big hurdle to get over. So it's great that they can kind of go to somebody who can not only help them with it, but I imagine it's a massive part of it of being in their shoes previously as well. Because I've got this big thing, I've talked about it on the podcast as well, that everybody's entitled to an opinion, anybody can do stuff, but not everybody's opinion's worth something. So I could sit here and, you know, do Microsoft Flight Simulator for 500 hours, and then sit there, and if I start to tell a pilot how to fly a plane, he'd laugh at me because I've never actually flown a plane. So I can imagine that it's very the same, especially like around addiction and stuff like that. If somebody who hasn't been through it was trying to give advice to somebody who is going through it, I imagine it could fall on deaf ears quite a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I know that everybody has input, and especially there's people who I've worked with who family members have been involved in addiction, and they're too very passionate about helping people. But there's something about peer-to-peer support and visible recovery that is very, very powerful. And this is, I think, at the beginning of somebody's journey. You know, they could say, you know, I don't want to talk to you. You haven't been there, you don't understand where I'm coming from, and they could close down. But as soon as I turn around and said, you know what, yes I have, kind of those excuses, those myths, that, you know, it all dispels everything, doesn't it? And they're like, okay, you see them change, like, right, so you do understand. I'm not saying that I've been at exactly the same place as them, but I've experienced something similar to them, and I kind of understand the suffering and the reasons why, and how hard it is to get out of, and how powerful drug addiction is.
It is. Obviously, it's something that's like locally. It's in obviously the news quite a bit. There's quite a lot of focus at the moment of. I was going to say the drug problem. That's not really probably the correct term to use, but obviously the situation or the issue that we have in Middlesbrough. What do you think that we can do? Obviously, I don't want this to become like. You know, what we currently do in the organisations are terrible and all that kind of stuff, because obviously they must do a lot of great work, and I don't want to attack someone who's not here kind of thing, but obviously sometimes these institutions, just by the way of it, are very slow to react on certain things just because, you know, the bureaucracy, etc. What can we start to do then as a community to start to help these people? Have you got it, like...
From my point of view, personally, I think we need to start an education programme around secondary school age. I think there needs to be more drug education from that sort of age when you're crossing over into your teenage years. I know when I went through school there was none.
Yeah, I can't remember it. Apart from it's evil and would kill everybody.
Just say no.
Yeah. Like, but no, of what? It's not a very good kind of thing.
I think the services that are out there at the moment, the mainstream service, I do believe they do a very good job on very limited budgets because money's getting tight from central government. Yeah,
that's a massive issue, obviously.
I think in the future, for not just the local area but the national area, there needs to be a lot more collaborative work, a lot more a lot more of sort of grassroots organisations clubbing together and working with the bigger organisations to plug those funding shortfalls, which are inevitably coming year on year. And I think that would be, that for me, like, collaboration's the big...
I agree there when you start to talk about like education and stuff like that. I think that there's this stigma, isn't it, that, you know, obviously, you know, drugs are bad, don't do them, just say no. But they don't really kind of address, like, it's not, you just like, nobody just sits there and one day thinks, I think I've become a drug addict today. Sounds like a really good idea. There's obviously certain things that happen in people's lives that obviously, whether, I know there's a lot of mental health out there and stuff like that, but there must be like certain things where, not kind of like warning signs, but, you know, where people should think, right, I need to get help. If I'd have got help at this point, I wouldn't have necessarily gone down that kind of thing, but I imagine it's hard to...
Well, it's really hard to pinpoint, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like why somebody uses drugs, and some people use drugs just for recreational.
Yeah, which is a massive. You know.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, it's a bit of fun and that, and you know, I'm not sat here anti-drugs.
No.
Like, I think if they're used sensibly, or, you know, it's I know it's controversial this, but if it's used like alcohol's a drug.
Yeah, so it's coffee and
do you
things
know,
like that. You know, there's, you know.
if it's used sensibly, or you're aware of yourself and kind of you don't take things to the extreme, then great. But there's a lot of people. I mean, I'm doing a lot of research into childhood trauma, child within. We run a group called DayHab, 10 Stages, which is innovative in the drugs, in drug recovery, even though the concept isn't new.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the roots of addiction. So what, like you said, what makes people take drugs or abuse drugs? What makes that drug so exciting that takes you away from life? You know, because life can be so exciting. So life has lots of blessings. Why would you want to do that to yourself?
Yeah.
So I kind of we look at what's going on in your life. Like, is it sexual abuse? Is it physical abuse? Is it emotional abuse? And a lot. I'm not saying all. I'm definitely not saying all, because everybody has different reasons. It could just be peer pressure. It could be anything, right?
You have to speak in generalities without specific like cases.
Yeah, and I can't start quoting statistics and things, right? But from my research and from speaking to a lot of people, about 80% of drug users, there's something gone on, some trauma has happened. So then when they take that drug or that drink, it's all they've been looking for. It's like, I feel like I belong. This is what I've been looking for, and all the pain goes. Yeah. So you can imagine then, if that drug is having that massive effect on you, that powerful effect, you're going to go back to it.
Yeah. You know, like if you've got, and it is that, like, obviously, again, when I've spoken in this entire podcast, like, my opinion on this is worth zero, but is like, that's kind of how I would imagine it with like a lot of people, that it was not an escape something, but help, like a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to not be able to be in society and have the children and go to a job and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if they've got something that's not even letting them cope with that, but some, like, there is this, whatever it is, like, you know, and obviously people can get addicted to, you know, just about anything, you know, but if that helps them get over that hump, then I can understand how it could, like, start to, you know,
become
like,
addictive. And how do you know you're an addict? I suppose that's a lot of people may have, or not even realise that they have a problem, or are in denial about that problem, or not at that stage to confront that problem. But there's no way, if people want to heal, there's no way out of that but to stop using and get some support and start addressing the roots of why you're using it in the first place. And it's not easy, and it is painful, and I think a lot of people were scared and fearful of doing that, but it's the only way, and it does get better. I think it's kind of like, if you like, I'm saying using, you could be using anything to escape, you know, like, but to get away from pain, to be known, well, if I want to stop doing this, I've got to go back to confronting what I had before that I'm trying to get away from, and then all the pain of trying to get away with this, and then, you know, I have to tell people, you know, I'm an addict and all this kind of stuff like that. That must be so hard for people to do, you know. Hardest thing you'll ever do. Hardest thing you'll ever do.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
But so worth it.
Oh yeah, and it's something that, like, there's a whole thing, like I was reading before, we work with a company that works in like the cannabis space and stuff like that. So they're very forward thinking and looking to America and all that kind of stuff, and they're very much like, and you know, they're like, addiction is something that they talk about, and there's a big, like, the, you know, kind of what they say, there's a big difference between use and abuse. You know, I know
Yeah.
that, you know, so it's possible, like you say, there's a difference between having a glass of wine and having 4 bottles of wine. You know, like there's like a slight scale.
I always use this scenario, like when I'm out with my sister. Say, I'd go to a pub with her years ago, and we'd have a drink, and then we may have another drink, and then she'd say, "Do you know, Annalise, I need to go home because I've got work in the morning."
Yeah.
And I would get that taste for that drink, and I wouldn't be going home, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't be going to work. I'd be ringing up work, and I'd even probably be out for the week and end up with some drug house somewhere. Do you know what I mean? That's my journey, and that is different to, say, other people. Now, is that because I had issues unresolved that I found that so exciting and so brilliant? Was it that, or was it the fact that I have an addictive personality? You know, these things need to be explored, don't they, and unpicked.
Yeah, like
And get to know yourself and why you're doing these things.
like I've got friends who are exactly like that, who are literally can like, if they're having a drink, they're having as much as they can drink, or they're having none. But they've got no problem splitting between the two. Like they've got very much in their head, right now is okay for me to have a drink, but if I go to a pub and it's not a okay time for me to have a drink, then I'll have a Coke or whatever.
Yeah.
But they would never like consider that they were to be labelled as addicts. But they're probably those type of people, probably the ones that are very at risk without even knowing it. You know, like it might only take like a certain life event, whether it be a death in the family, you know, being made redundant or whatever it be, to kind of like, you know, push them over that kind of hill type of thing. So I can massively see that.
And it doesn't need to be just drugs, does it? It can be, people can disassociate into pornography, into gambling, into shopping, into relationships. You know, there's all sorts of things that you can disassociate into, and they too can cause you problems. And I think that's what the thing is, isn't it? The warning signs, like how do you know you're an addict? How do you know you've got a problem? Well, if things are going wrong in your home life, if your wife's shouting and screaming at you, if you're not looking after the kids and you're not taking the kids to school, if you're not turning up at work, if you've got money problems because of your what you're disassociating into, then there's a problem.
Yeah. One thing that was really keen. Sorry, I only found out about like not found out, but somebody brought it to my attention recently. That I said recently, it was months ago, but where there's people who can be like functioning addicts. So you know they still care for the kids, they still go to work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you know, beneath it, they're very much kind of addicted. You know, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Like, is that something that you guys have come across much, or is that like prevalent? Because those guys are marginalised to the point where no one talks about that. Like, obviously there's drug addiction people paint a specific picture of it, but there is the other side of the coin where there's people who can do that.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of years, I was never an addict because I worked. Worked good jobs. I was a head chef. I was making good money. I was working long hours.
Very stressful. Like, you know, it's one of the most stressful jobs that you can have, being a chef. Head chef, anyway.
I mean, because I was paying for me drugs and I was paying for me drink, and I wasn't an addict because I wasn't going out and I wasn't doing what addicts do. In my mind, I don't know. I think it's very much a mindset. I wouldn't say I'm not better than anyone, but for me, when I was a high functioning addict, I would never associate it as being an addict. Yeah. Because in your mind, you've got that professional mindset. I get up in the morning, I go to work, I do my day's work. Yeah. And I think you're right. I think there's a big hidden society out there, and people in, not particularly just catering, but within a lot of high pressure jobs, who use, whether it be alcohol, whether it be cocaine, as crutches. Yeah. And I mean, at the end, when I was head chef, I got out of a kitchen for sort of my own sanity. In the end, I was using alcohol to the tune of sort of 2 bottles of whiskey a day, and high cocaine use, and it just had to curb, and I had to go through the same journeys everybody else does. In the end, I had to admit that I had a problem, and then I had to remove myself from that problem and deal with it. Yeah, I imagine again it's one of those things that you don't think of yourself as an addict because, like you say, you're functioning. You imagine, like you say, people who are addicts who can't keep up with the rent payments or mortgage payments, or you know they can't go to work, or they're found at work doing it, whatever. But I imagine, especially like you say, like stressful jobs and things like that. Like I've come into contact people who are in business who are
whatever they do is, you know, like balls to the wall, like flat out. If they're working at 1 million miles an hour. But also, like, when they're not working and they're partying, that's to 1 million miles an hour, isn't that as well? Yeah. And you know, I would kind of like, there is, I imagine, you don't know how many cases are like, so, and again, stress for a coping mechanism and stuff like that. Like, how many people go home and after, you know, a busy day or a stressful time, might have a few drinks and
like
stuff
reward,
like that.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
I deserve it. It's a reward.
God, I
relax.
Yeah, how many people say, God, I need a drink?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like, I need a drink when this is done, which is a coping thing that helps you, you know, get through it. But if you've already got such like a high stressful environment, it doesn't, and you're already at that threshold where you don't have any support anyway, it's not going to take much to move past, and then you're into a place where you've still got all this stuff, but it's going worse, and you've got there's nothing set up for identifying those, like, that, but then getting help with it, you know what I mean? Like, because nobody really wants to admit, I suppose, I don't, I'm terrified, admitting that I need help.
Yeah, I think, is that a man thing, or?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think with a function addict as well, it's really hard to reach out and ask for help, because it means time on the sick. It means admitting to your employer. And I think there's still a huge, well, I know that there's still a huge stigma around drugs and alcohol within the workplace. And I think for someone to put their hands up and go to their boss and go, I'm really sorry, I've got this big problem which I'm struggling to deal with, I think they feel that it's automatically going to put their job in jeopardy. Yeah. And I think if there's, like, back to sort of the point I believe about education, I think there's education to be done in the working world as well around substance misuse, and that people let people in. It's not just that depending on your background where it is, it just doesn't discriminate. No, and you know, and it sounds like daft, but the first thing I thought about there, which is terrible, is that if somebody is functioning at that higher level and they're an addict, imagine how high a level they could function without it, you know what I mean, or whatever it is. So is there anything that people can do, like obviously the podcast is predominantly business focused, that employers and business owner and managers either can look for, like, is there particular signs that somebody might just need somebody to kind of go, look, like, what help can we give people as employers and things like, because that must be like a massive part of it, was providing that help before it gets to that point. Is there anything that people can either look out for, or I know it's not easy, an easy answer, certainly.
I don't know, I just think I think the employer will know, probably. Yeah. I mean, before, it's like kind of common sense, isn't it? I think you can tell if somebody's kind of, maybe you can smell drink on the breath, maybe they're coming in late, maybe you can just see it in around their eyes. There's something, isn't there? Like, you just know, you think, something not quite right, or they're not doing their work to their best ability. I think the employer would know before. You think you're kidding people, you think nobody knows what you're doing, you think nobody can see. Yeah. But other people, including family, can see before you can.
Oh yeah. I suppose that is, you know? I go, like, we were having a conversation the other week of where you used to go home, like when you were younger, and you were drunk and you would try and, like, to your parents, like, act sober. Like, now when I look back, I was thinking, there's absolutely no way that we were fooling anybody. Yeah. Like, your parents, you think, oh, I've got away with that one. But obviously, like, that's not the case, you know. Like, I know myself as an employer, if somebody came to me and something happened, I would feel so guilty that I didn't help that person before it. Like, it's my responsibility to kind of help the people that work for me. And if I don't pick that up, then, and I can understand how every situation is different, and sometimes you don't want to ask people, you know, personal issues and stuff like that, and there needs to be a line. But I can imagine there's a lot of employees who would be like, you know, predominantly, you know, there's a lot of companies out there who treat people like a number and all that kind of stuff, and then getting lost in the system, I imagine, is a massive problem as well. But the other side of that, I imagine there's a lot of employees who think, you know what, we could actually, you know, how can I help people moving forward?
Maybe some training around that, isn't it, with employees? You know, just what you were thinking that, weren't you? I
think sort of, I mean, we provide training sort of to our volunteers and to professionals, and I think training may be for more towards the private business sector, around signs to look out for employees, the alternatives to the disciplinary route. I mean, obviously there is instances where that isn't avoidable. That's always going to be the case. Yeah. But I think it's about reducing the stigma, isn't it? It's about saying to the
retaining staff as well, isn't it? Really, and
staff retainment.
Yeah, like obviously, you know, staff turnover and things like that is huge for any business and costs a fortune for businesses and things like that. And everybody builds up personal relationships, and you don't want to see bad things happen to these people and things like that. So let's say I had a magic wand that I use in all these podcasts. If I ever get this thing, there's going to be a lot of people knocking on my door. Where we could wave it and we could kind of say, look, if we didn't have budget to worry about and all that kind of stuff, which obviously is, the dirty big elephant that's in the room on all services.
Less and less
stuff.
money, more and more need.
Yeah. Like, we were talking, we've got a client who works as a consultant surgeon within the NHS and stuff like that, and he was telling us, like, some of the constraints that, like, say, I don't want to go into details, obviously, because, but a hospital in the local area that's privately owned, and the constraints that they had on budget, and things like that. And it is just like somebody's left the tap on, you know what I mean? And it's people wondering why the bucket, they can't keep the bucket full, that kind of stuff. So
it's almost like as if life doesn't matter, isn't it? It's like they find money for other things if it's going to improve the economy but I also understand, like, there's people in positions of power have budgets and they've got to allocate that money. Yeah. And it's not just about drug addiction, it's about, and I'd hate to be the one who has to decide where this money goes. Yeah. It really must be a really hard job, but kind of like, is it drug addiction? Is it disability? Is it children? Yeah. Is it cancer? If you're giving to one, you've got to take from somewhere else. And who you're taking off. Like, again, I would hate to be in that kind of situation, and which is why I say the magic wand, because we live very much in the real world while these things. We would like to be like out of a job.
Yeah.
That's our vision.
It's crazy, isn't it? Having a thing where our goal is not to exist. Yeah. But if we're busy, then it's bad. Yeah. Yeah, but it is though, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like, if you go into last year went into A&E and it was empty, and I was like, oh, it's quiet in here, and they were like, yeah, like, it's really good, like, when we're quiet for it. And I was like, but I bet it never happens to that.
I think another part of what we do, TRAC, and we've just won an award, and this is not for ego purposes, this is just we've been recognised for the work that we do, and I think that helps us maybe with funding and getting out there and showing that we are recognised for the work we do. And Catalyst, which is a voluntary helps voluntary organisations in Stockton. We won the Voice and Influence Award. Mm-hmm. So we're very much about advocating, giving service users a voice. And we find, that a lot of service users, clients, whatever people, I don't like to give anybody, it's difficult to have a name for people. Yeah. To give them a voice within services, within appointments, and so they really are listened to. Yeah. And it's about us navigating a way forward. We're about empowering people as well. So when we're advocating for somebody, it's towards hopefully one day they're advocating for themselves, self-advocacy. Mm-hmm. But we also believe in, we also part of collective advocacy. Mm. So then on Saturday we're doing a recovery walk, which is part of Favour UK, which is Faces and Voices of Recovery. Middlesbrough are hosting the event, and there'll be people from up and down the country. There'll be about 10,000 people marching through the streets. There'll be stalls. We've got a stall there, and it's just about celebrating and showing people, because unfortunately we get bad press. It's about, drug addict robbed the granny, drug addict's done this, drug addict, they all need to be imprisoned, punished, bad people. Yeah. It's not like that, we're good people, we've just made bad choices, or we've just fell into something that we didn't realise we were going to fall into. We didn't want to become addicts and ruin our lives.
Nobody picks it as like a choice.
At school, a teacher says, what would you like to be when you grow up? And they say, drug addicts, please. That's what I want to be. Yeah. It doesn't happen like that, does it? No. And so it's going to be absolutely amazing. There's going to be so much to celebrate and to show people. Like, it's about reducing stigma, creating awareness, and to show people that we do recover together. People do recover. So I'm really excited about that. So come along and you wear purple. Yeah. We'll
have, obviously, when this goes out, it'll be that'll be in the past, but we will have had the details on the page and stuff. That'll be in the past. So if there's people out there who are listening, whether it be themselves or they know somebody, like family members, whoever it is, where are the best places for them get in touch with you and start to help somebody? What's the first steps that somebody can do?
We will accept referrals from self-referrals. We have obviously a Facebook page. We're going to be found on Facebook under the Recovery Advocates and Consultants. They can even just drop into the St Mary's Centre, or we'll leave our contact details.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And obviously, all that'll be like your web, everything will be linked below where people can get in touch with some people.
And also the women's group, which I'm really passionate about, which is Women Only Recovery. There's like a pink. It's like a pinky red kind of, because I didn't want to go too pink, so it's like a pinky red empowering kind of logo with Women Only Recovery group on there, and if you just join there, you'll be women will be very welcome.
Yeah, again, we can make sure that's linked in the description for you as well.
Brilliant.
Obviously, that's a private group, and the other one's a Facebook page, but we'll have that in there. So when we get everybody on the podcast, we like to ask people to close with the same. We ask everybody the same 3 questions when they end. Obviously, your guys' answers, I've got a feeling, are going to be a bit different from the normal fare that we get, but it's up to you if you want to answer them, because they are personal questions and stuff. So I'll tell you the 3 questions in order, and if you don't want to answer, we can always edit it out. So the 3 questions are: the first one is, what does success look like to you, like individually? Now, the reason that we ask that is because there's this perception that success is, millionaire, nice car, all that kind of stuff. But we've had so many different answers. It's been phenomenal. Some people have said that, that is their goal.
Yeah, right.
But some people have said more time with the kids. Some people have just said more time to do hobbies. Some people whatever it is, we've had every answer, and it's been a really good thing. The second is, have you ever had a setback, a failure, or what you perceived as a failure at the time that's led to good things down the line? Like, we've had people who've come on with a bunch of different stuff. We've had a few people who've been made redundant. It's actually let them start their own jobs. There was one guy who had numerous heart attacks and strokes based on the lifestyle that he was living, and that actually served as a wake-up call for him to go on and do other stuff. There's a million different answers there, and again, it's showing people that it's not final. People can always move on and take a step to go in the right direction. And then the third one is just a bit of fun, where we ask people, is the one thing that you are really into or obsessed by at the moment? So we've had TV shows, gadgets. Ben Houchard, when he came on, said that he's obsessed by home automation, the Alexas and all that kind of stuff. Like, he was really geeky about them. There's people who've had everything and anything, so it's just a bit of fun. So it's up to you guys if you want to answer the question, because I really some of them are a bit more personal than other kind of stuff.
Do you want to answer number 1, and then I'll answer number 1 and you answer number 2, because I can't remember them.
Yeah, that's good. So we'll do it.
I don't know what your memory's like. It's good.
I'll remind you on. So the first one is, what does success look like to you personally?
Right, okay.
Success to me would be for TRAC to become a self-sustaining model, and for us to become a nationally recognised charity over the foreseeable future, no set time.
Brilliant.
That would be success.
I'm going to go same, aren't I?
Yeah.
I'm going to go same.
You can't give really good answers first. You'll have to go first next time, otherwise. Yeah.
But yeah, see, TRAC to stay and helping loads of people.
Yeah.
That's what our success is to me as well. It is. But also the success thing, because I love that, because success is different to different people, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like, had to have a family or to earn loads of money. But that is it, to make TRAC successful, to be happy.
Yeah.
To be happy and have enough money to be able to have what I need.
Yeah.
But for me, money has not brought me happiness ever in my life.
Yeah.
Do you know? And when I was in addiction and previous to addiction, money was something I really was bothered about, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I want these designer clothes. I want these shoes. I don't know if that's just growing up for me today, but I think it's also that I know that it didn't bring me happiness. Looking for happiness in those things doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So now it's, I'll do what's rewarding. I'll do what I'm passionate about. Do what I think is my calling, helping people, and if money comes, it's a bonus.
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah.
But it's a bonus, and it's the rewarding bit. It's staying true with myself.
It is. Yeah, we've had a few people on who've come on, and they've, for example, the money and the success thing of they've started a business and there's this perceived idea that if you start a business you need to build it to be the biggest business.
Yeah.
You know, you need to be Facebook
Yeah.
or Nike or whatever, and they've built a very, very big business. But what they found out is when they built it, it's not what they really wanted.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
like they now had to deal with so much stuff that was
Yeah.
away from all the passion stuff they wanted to do in
Yeah.
the middle. So they've like started again or remodeled it or something where they've actually realised what people think is success actually isn't a cookie cutter for everybody.
No, you're so right. You might get to that top of the ladder and go, this isn't where I want to be.
No,
and
no.
this is making me so unhappy. And maybe staying small and staying like just in this area, grassroots, and keeping it in the day, you know, that's maybe where it's at. But I also believe in, I know this sounds spooky and stuff, but like the universe is kind of working in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
So kind of if you can just, and I find it so hard because through drugs and stuff, I'm quite an anxious person, there's a lot of anxiety, so I have to like manage that and manage on a daily basis, not going back to my coping strategies.
Yeah.
So if I meditate and I breathe, which I don't do all the time, and I'm not, you know, but kind of I do try and meditate and I do breathe and I do calm myself down.
Yeah.
What I truly want and what's right for me, which goes back to the child within concept, is the right path, and it settles, and it doesn't. But when I start running on anxiety, it's like I need this to be big, I need this to do this, I need this to be like this, I need all this money, and I need that, and I don't. Just breathe.
Yeah, take a minute and it kind of like reveals itself.
It does.
There's a great book that a few people have recommended, but I confess I haven't read it. It's called The Monkey Mind or The Monkey Brain or something like that,
Yeah.
which talks very much about how that area of your brain when something happens is like, you know, where actually if you realise what that is and give yourself a minute through meditation or whatever it is, and I may be completely wrong about the book here, I'm just trying to get there.
So this is kind of about the child within, so it's the intuitive voice. So to stop that monkey brain or to stop that is it a midget, the racing brain, breathe, meditate, and then you're in touch with your child within. So what that's saying is it's like your true self, what you really want, not what your parents want, not what society wants you to do, not what, you know, all these values and morals that maybe not yours. What is that you want? And if you like are kind to this child that's previously been traumatized, and you bring that child out and you give it a big hug and say, you know what, I'm going to nurture you now and I'm going to set you free. Then you can be whoever you want to be, and you are truly free. And Elton John, that new film that's out.
Rocket Man. I haven't seen it, but I've heard it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And that's about first he's in a 12-step meeting, and then the child within gets brought in. It's really emotional, and really powerful.
Yeah. I'll have to give it a watch. Like I've heard, like I've got to think about it. So the second question is, and again, just if you want to answer it, is: have you ever had a failure, or what at the time was perceived as a failure, or a setback that's later led to success down the line, or putting you on the right path and things like that? So.
I thought we said the same thing. Go on then. Oh, it's me.
Yeah.
Addiction.
Yeah.
So becoming an addict. Now, in recovery, I know a lot of people who've died in addiction. I lived in a house where everybody was heroin addicts and they've all died. And I'm thinking, why am I surviving? Why am I alive today? It must be a calling. And because of the suffering that I've had through addiction and the tragedy and the setback, I can now help other people today. But if I hadn't have experienced that, I wouldn't be where I am today, and wouldn't be like finding myself and what I want to do with my life and being true to myself. So addiction.
Yeah. And yourself?
Same.
See?
Very much the same, but I suppose for a different spin, the multiple failures of being a high functioning addict and not being willing to accept that. The multiple failures that led up to sort of, I suppose you could say, a boiling point where everything boiled over. And I guess just...
Is that a chef pun?
Yeah.
And then I guess sort of constantly running away from yourself, that was a big changing point. That was the catalyst for change.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then the final one is there one thing, or whatever it may be, that you're really into, obsessed about at the moment, or anything like that?
My dogs.
You're actually unlucky. We have two office dogs and neither of them are here today.
No,
sorry.
I love dogs. Animals, I love animals because they're so unjudgmental and so unconditional love.
Yeah.
And I have 2 wolfhounds.
Yeah.
Huge dogs.
Yeah, lovely dogs.
And they're my recovery dogs, and they come on recovery walks, and we have like tabards, tabards, and we go in the park, and we talk to people who are on the streets, and everyone knows them, you know, and I'm just obsessed with dogs. So I think sometimes if I think that, you know what, I'm just going to forget all of this, and I'm just going to go and do dog walking or something. I think that's probably what I'll end up doing.
Yeah. It's good, really good.
I'm obsessed about it at the moment.
Not everybody is. It's just like,
Work.
Well, yeah.
I think it's like another addiction, isn't it? We need to be careful.
Yeah. I bet that it's actually, you know, there's probably a lot of people who are technically addicted to work by there's a coping mechanism and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I bet that is actually, you know, a really big thing. But thanks so much for coming on. Like, it's been really great to talk to you.
Lovely to meet you.
If obviously we're always happy to support anything. If you've got anything going on, however, please let us know. We're happy to share. Same as if anybody's listening and they want to get in touch or want any more information for themselves or organisations or family members, please get in touch. It is an amazing cause. This has been the Teesside Business Podcast. The Teesside Business Podcast is promoted and produced by Person to Person Marketing. Thanks very much for listening.